What is going on, everybody? I hope you are doing well, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel today. Before I get into today's video, I just want to say thank you so much for the support on my last video. It did a lot better than I was expecting, so thank you for that. I've got this video coming out today, some other ones I'm working on, and I'm really excited to get into the season here, so thank you for the support on that last video. And without further ado, I'm going to get into today's video, where I'm going to be talking about a player that I'm very, very excited for in 2023. I think it's going to be a huge year for them, so let's get right into that. As you can probably tell by the title and thumbnail for this video, the focus is going to be on Ja'Marr Chase. And before I get into exactly why I think he's going to have such a big season in 2023, I do want to address the fact that, yes, I know he is the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Player on the Year on a bunch of sportsbook sites. He is a top 2 pick in basically in fantasy drafts on almost every site, and a lot of people think he's going to be a really good player this year. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is just the most unique take. However, I do think a few things. I do think Ja'Marr Chase is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to do a full award predictions video hopefully sometime soon, but I do think he's going to win the Offensive Player of the Year. I think after the season he'll be definitely a consensus top 5 receiver and probably considered by most a top 3 receiver. I think in fantasy, he would be my pick to finish as the wide receiver 1, and I would not be surprised if we are seeing him as the first overall pick in fantasy drafts for the 2024 season. So just want to address that right away, that I know he is already a good player, and a lot of other people are high on him for this season. But I'm going to dive into specifically why I think he's so good and why I think this can be such a big season for him. So let's pull up some of the reasons why I think that is going to happen. All right, with all of that being said, let's dive into the specific reasons why I think Ja'Marr Chase will have a breakout year in 2023 and win the Offensive Player of the Year and all that other stuff that I was mentioning. So the first, one of the more obvious reasons is because he's fully healthy this season. Last year, he only played in 12 regular season games. So in order to put up, really good season-long stat line or win an award like Offensive Player of the Year, he's going to have to play more games than that in 2023. But he is fully healthy going into this season, and I expect him, there's no lingering issues, so I expect him to remain healthy throughout the entire season, obviously barring something happening. And on that same note, I do expect Joe Burrow to be healthy for week 1, but if he's not, I think that they'll rest him at least till he's fully healthy. So that could maybe hurt Chase in the first 1 or 2 games of the season, but I think Burrow's going to play in the beginning of the season, and if not, he will be healthy for the season. So that's a big reason why, of course, Chase is going to perform, I think, better than he did last year. So another thing we can look at is his increasing target share. Last year, he saw, or 2 years ago, he had around 24% target share, and last year that was up to 29%. So he's already a huge part of this offense, but he became an even bigger part of this offense in 2022, and I expect that to continue into 2023. Obviously, you still have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, have Irv Smith at tight end. Joe Mixon is going to be pretty much the feature back for pretty much every situation, I would think, in this offense. Maybe a guy like Chase Brown or Chris Evans sort of mix in a little bit, but it is the same offense, which is obviously a really good offense, but Chase was an even bigger part of the offense in 2022, and I expect that maybe not to continue to go upwards to see over 30% target share. I don't necessarily expect that, but I would expect it to be in that 29% range, at least that it was during last season. One of the big concerns over the past couple seasons for the Bengals has been their offensive line. Obviously, that was a big storyline when they made it to the Super Bowl in 2021, and they've signed a lot of players, traded for them, whatever, over the past couple seasons. Nothing has really worked that well, but they do have Orlando Brown Jr. that's going to be starting at left tackle for them this season, so that is going to be a big noticeable upgrade, I think, on this offensive line. Left tackle probably the most important position for right-handed quarterbacks, sort of that backside tackle. So I think that should allow Joe Burrow some more time to throw, and that is going to be good for a guy like Ja'Marr Chase, who's such an elite downfield threat. Getting that extra second or two for Burrow to hang in the pocket and let Chase go to work on the outside, make some open space, make a play. I think that's something that's actually going to be an underratedly, if that's even a word, beneficial part of this breakout season for Ja'Marr Chase is Orlando Brown Jr. As the new starting left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. The next point that I want to make is it is his 3rd season in the NFL. So his first year was his rookie year, obviously an amazing year, won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And last year, he was actually better on a per game basis. If you want to look at fantasy points, if you're thinking about it in that way, yards per game, whatever, he was better on a per game basis last season, but obviously they got cut short because of injury, but now he's back and fully healthy. It's not his rookie season. I think this is his best opportunity to put up a massive season here, and he's only, been getting better, in my opinion, since he's come into the league, so I expect that to continue into year 3 for him. Another note that I have on there is top offense. The Bengals have been one of the top performing teams over the past couple seasons, and I know that the AFC North is very tough division this year, and some people think the Bengals are a little bit overrated coming into this season, but regardless of that, they're still going to have one of the league's top offenses. Maybe the defense is where people are seeing some question marks with that guys like Jesse Bates anymore, but regardless, they're going to have one of the top offenses in the league, and they don't necessarily have one of the best rushing offenses in the league. That really comes from the passing games. Of course, that's going to be a contributing factor that they're going to be, again, one of the top offenses in the NFL. The last two notes that I haven't touched on yet, I'm going to dive into a little bit more specifically, but I put in there he has elite yards after catch ability and he's an elite downfield threat. I sort of mentioned when I was talking about Orlando Brown Jr. giving the Joe Burrow a little bit more time for those downfield plays to develop. I know that was a sort of big feature of Ja'Marr Chase's game in his rookie year, and teams sort of keyed into those deep balls more in his second season. So maybe we could see a bit of a resurgence of those deep plays, but if not, I'd like to see Ja'Marr Chase progress sort of underneath. He already has some of the best yards after catch ability in the entire NFL. So if he can, improve a little bit on his route running on those short to intermediate routes and, get to the likes of the other top receivers in the league in those categories, that is why I expect to see some improvement from him this season. And if those are the areas that he can improve on, he's already good after the catch and downfield. If he can improve on those other areas, I think he can be in the conversation for being the best receiver in the entire NFL. But I'm going to dive into a little bit more his downfield threat ability and his yards after catch ability with this graphic I'm going to put up on screen here. All right, so like I just said, I think Ja'Marr Chase is an elite after the catch and downfield threat, but now we're going to compare him to other wide receivers and try to put some numeric values to those statements. So if we take a look at this graphic behind me, we're going to be looking at some of the top receivers in the NFL and how they compare in each of these different categories. And I know the consensus sort of best metric for comparing wide receivers that people are using these days is yards per route run, because if you look at yards per route run, the leaderboard, you're gonna be like, yep, those are all the top receivers in the NFL. And I know that, but I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to sort of grading these wide receivers and looking at a couple different statistics to hopefully get maybe a good, well-rounded picture of their performance here. So if you take a look at this graphic behind me, these are the wide receivers that rank the highest in composite score for a few different statistics that I wanted to be looking at. The first one, you see the column that's labeled downfield EPA, and so that is just, if you're not familiar with EPA, that's expected points added. So for a play, and when you're at a certain position on the field in a certain situation, a football game, using some sort of data science, machine learning techniques, whatever, you would estimate, okay, how many expected points are you going to score from this position? If you're on the 1 yard line, you're probably expected to score a lot of points. If you're on your own 1 yard line, in a 4th and 30, you're probably expected to score 0 points on that drive. So EPA is how many points each individual play is adding to your expected points total. So in this first column, downfield EPA, that is the average number of points, expected points that these receivers are adding on passes with 15 plus air yards. So these downfield targets, how much points are they generating for their team. As you can see, the top ranked guy on here is A.J. Brown, which is no surprise. In 2022, caught a ton of long touchdowns, was a huge deep threat for the Eagles. So you see other guys that grade out well in this category are Davante Adams, George Kittle, Ja'Marr Chase, Jerry Jeudy actually shows up pretty well in this category. So if we take a look at the next column, we can see yards after catch EPA. So it's the same concept, except instead of on pass with 15 plus air yards, we're just looking at how much positive expected points each wide receiver is generating per target after the catch. So you can see Cooper Kupp shows up really well after the catch. Of course, a guy like George Kittle, he's a beast after the catch, he's going to show up well. Of course, our guy Ja'Marr Chase shows up well in this category as well. Jerry Jeudy once again grades out very well. Kelsey, AJ Brown, Davante Adams, these guys as well. So in order to, those are the two areas where I think Ja'Marr Chase excelled. So I wanted to look at those and how he stacks up against these other top wide receivers. You can see, he's outperforming a guy like Justin Jefferson, a guy, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. He's outperforming these categories, and he's up there with the rest of these guys. So that's really why I think, he is such a dynamic offensive player, really good downfield, really good after the catch. So that's why I think he could really have a huge season this year, sort of playing off of those two strengths in his game. And then the last thing I added in there to sort of fill in the gaps of, like route running and those kinds of things that these first two statistics aren't really taking into account. I just added PFF, their grade on pass routes here. So that's where you see guys like Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, you know, some of the best route runners and just like purely, you know, wide receiver skill. They show up well in these categories. Maybe a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who's, you know, a bit more of a raw, young wide receiver. He doesn't show up as well. So that far right column of composite score, that's just equally weighting all of those 3 characteristics and ranking them. And you can see, you know, Ja'Marr Chase is coming in at 4th on this list. You know, looking at some of his strengths, he's excelling very well. He did in 2022, he did in 2021, and I expect that to continue in 2023. I just think, you know, he's just so explosive and such an explosive offense. He is going to have a ton of opportunities to have big games, generate big plays, and I really see that happening this season for him. So I think there is a big breakout coming for Ja'Marr Chase. That is pretty much all of the information that I have for you guys in today's video, but let me know down in the comments below what you think. You know, do you think Ja'Marr Chase is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year? If not, who do you think is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year? Who do you think is going to have a big season? This is just a player for me. You know, in fantasy drafts, of course, I'm always trying to get that number 2 overall pick so I could snag Ja'Marr Chase. And, you know, if you are one of the people who are not super high on him, I hope, you know, maybe I've changed your mind or given you a little bit of insight into why people are so high for him this season. But yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on that, on this Bengals team in general, maybe other videos you want to see for me, or like I said, who you think is going to have a breakout season in 2023. So thank you for anybody watching this late in the video, and I'll be back with another video, hopefully trying to post once a week, but we will see. The season is about to kick off here. I'm super excited for that. So I'll be back very soon with some other videos.